Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Designated Pundits. Today we're previewing the 2024 Major League Soccer season for Orlando City. I'm joined this evening by Luis Pineda and John Rollins from Loud and Proud Orlando, podcast covering Orlando City. Guys, how you doing?
Doing great, thank you.
No, doing fantastic. Thank you for the invite.
Of course, thank you for joining us. Let us know where we can find your work.
You can find us at LPO_podcast on X, Instagram, Facebook, also as Loud and Proud Orlando on YouTube.
Awesome. So let's get into it. Before we preview the season, we're going to do a brief recap of what happened last year for Orlando City. An excellent year by all accounts, one that saw you, especially at the end of the season, shoot up the rankings, finally finishing second on decision day. So this Orlando team was 18-9-7. Again, they finished second in the East. 55 goals scored. That'll get it done. And then 39 goals allowed, which was, I think, a three-way tie for second least in the East. You finish the season on a 4-game win streak. Then you go out and you win both legs of the first round against Nashville, one of what we thought was going to be a powerhouse in the East last season. Finally, you were eliminated in the conference semis by the Columbus Crew. Interesting fact, you did not lose 2 straight matches in all of 2023. That's got to have you guys feeling good, so talk about it.
I did not know that one stat about not losing 2 matches in a row. That's really interesting. And we went through a little bad stint there at the beginning of the season. It was not so pretty for us starting out, right? Like it wasn't really clicking with Martin Ojeda coming in, and we lost a lot of home games last season. Our away form was really good. I think it was like number 2 overall. So it was ups and downs for us, and we ended the season strong and looked really good. And we're hoping that we could, potentially go all the way in the playoffs. But losing in the MLS Cup to the guys who then go win the MLS Cup is it's not a big problem for me.
Absolutely. I think you guys should be happy with what happened last season. Talking about that home field advantage, 1.89 points per game on the road is the best away record in Major League Soccer. 1.84 points per game at home is good, but like league average. You guys were better on the road last year than at home. Talk about what happened there. Why do we know why? Do we have any thoughts on that?
I think it was also Oscar Pareja, knowing, playing a little bit more defensively away and making themselves more of a presence away than at home. At home, also having the pressure of the fans, some fans that expected, Oscar to play very attacking-minded soccer, and it wasn't panning out the first few games. Eventually, though, the team, because of the away form, started taking shape, and then we started winning some games at home, and that's when you see that last stretch and finishing second in the league. So I just can't wait to see what we're going to do with the depth that we have now this year and keeping the main core, which is the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember maybe 2 years ago, 2022, Red Bull, my team, was the last in home field advantage, which was very, very strange for them. They'd always had a huge home field advantage, and it was like a play style thing. They were pressing so aggressive that when teams came out at home aggressive against you, you can turn it around on them a lot more easily. At home, when those teams bunker, we had absolutely nothing to break that down. Was that a similar thing for you guys, or was just maybe just a luck of the draw?
I think so. I think it was partly we just weren't able to click in that first part of the year, and at home we just weren't creating as much for sure. And Mauricio Pereira has his moments, but he had games where he was our creative force, but he wasn't actually creating, and we were kind of too reliant on him at times. I think over the season, and ultimately meant that we didn't create enough chances in that first part of the season. We also were not great at being clinical with our chances. We had a bit of a 9 issue. We weren't really scoring enough goals from our center forward with Kara. That's how kind of Duncan McGuire broke into the team and then managed to pick up some goals. But even by the end of the season, Duncan, wasn't firing, wasn't scoring. So we're still kind of missing someone to put those chances in the back of the net, as well as often missing that guy on the field to create for our wingers. We have a lot of wingers. We didn't have necessarily that 10 all the time in Mauricio because, like I said, he was in and out with his form.
Now let's take a look at some of who those contributors were in 2023. You had Facundo Torres, 14 goals, 3 assists. Duncan McGuire with 13 goals and 3 assists. Martin Ojeda, 6 goals, 7 assists. Ivan Angulo, 5 goals, 6 assists, and Erkan Kara with 5 goals and 1 assist. What do you guys think of when you see this chart?
Personally, I think it's fantastic to see Facundo right up top. Obviously, he's a DP. We still feel that we could see more of a leadership role this season for him. Duncan broke out because, as you can see, one of our DPs, like Erkan Kara, was scoring 5 goals. The fans were not happy about that. He was benched. Duncan was given the chance and he killed it. We're probably going to see more of Martin Ojeda this season, and we'll discuss that probably a little later. And to me, the most important part of the puzzle, especially in the attacking third, and there are 2 players. One, it's not on that list, and the other one, it's on here. Ivan Angulo, to me, it's a threat on the left flank. Came from Palmeiras, being pretty much shunned to the bench throughout his whole career, comes into Oscar's system, and that's the beauty of Oscar Pareja. He turns players around like nothing. Took the most out of Ivan Angulo, made him an important piece of the puzzle, and I think one of the most attacking-minded players that we have right now. And then another player that I think was important was Wilder Cartagena. Then Wilder Cartagena on that double pivot, he was definitely what Araujo needed to secure that mid.
If you had to pick an MVP, who would that be?
Oof. You go, John.
I think we talked about this at the end of our season pod, and Luis would probably agree. It could be Wilder Cartagena for what happened in our season really turned around when we brought him and Cesar together in that double pivot.
That's right.
And he's the 2 of them together can be the 2 best D-mids, I believe, in the league when they're on their day. So I think he was a massive, important MVP sort of signing for us last year. We expect to, kick on and become even better this year.
You've already mentioned an underperformer in Erkan Kara. What about an overperformer? Is there anyone who blew you guys away and outplayed your expectations?
Well, Duncan McGuire in the beginning of the season. I mean, you're talking about a kid coming from college, the college system. Orlando, Musi and Moreira's vision, picking the kid up, the kid, just being so resilient, ready to get suited, booted, and play, and he exceeded all expectations. I think to me that was the biggest surprise. Obviously, yeah, it kind of fell a little short after that Toronto game. We didn't really see much. He put away Bradley. He put him on the shelf, but then after that, we didn't see a lot of him. But I think he was definitely the surprise of the team last year.
Great. So now let's talk about some players in and some players out. Guys got busy this offseason. Incoming players include Nico Ladero, David Bracalo, and Luis Muriel. Outgoing, Mauricio Pereira, Antonio Carlos, and Luca Petrasso. So let's start with the outgoing players first. Do any of these signings really hurt? These losses?
I think it's 2 guys there, Mauricio Pereira and Antonio Carlos, that we were kind of ready to let go of and move on from. Mauricio was really one of our best players. Like I said, the center attacking mid who created everything for us for years, but he'd gotten to that point in age where we were ready to move on to a younger player, or ironically, we signed someone even older, but a new player in that position. And Antonio Carlos, he had some injury problems. He was once a great center back for us, arguably one of the better center backs in the league. But the injury problems kind of found him last year, secondary to Rodrigo Schlegel most of the time. And so really we were anticipating that he would leave. He wanted to go back down to Brazil. So both of those guys we were ready to let go of. And I think that sort of was part of this year that we knew we were going to have to move on from a couple key pieces down the spine of the team, and we were going to have to replace them. But I believe that we've replaced them and done better. So I think for us, it's not a big loss to let those two guys go.
It's worth noting for those of you who are listening and not watching, Luca Petrasos is out on a loan. So he's not necessarily gone forever, just solo, it's more later than goodbye necessarily.
I think it is a loan to buy. So we do think maybe.
Yeah, well.
Who knows?
Still not official. I get corrected on that every episode. Actually, Bob, he can come back. Incoming players include Nico Lodero, the number 10, who's had a storied MLS career. He's up in his late 30s. Then you brought in a center back, David Bricalo, and Luis Muriel to play that number 9 position. Not only did you find the weakness on your team, you replaced all the players who left at, I think, what is going to be a very suitable level. Let's talk about these incoming players now.
Yeah. So when it comes to Nico Lodero, a winner in the league, somebody that has won and knows how to play finals, semifinals. And also he's very versatile in his play. We've seen it in the preseason. Actually, John and I have seen him, how he just adapted so well with all the guys in the attacking third, and also did more of a defensive work than Mauricio. So he could play like sort of like an 8 or like a left defensive mid there.
One of my favorite stats about Lodero over the course of, the strongest part of his career, I think it was like 2017 to 2021 when I think he got injured.
Yeah.
For like a 4-year span, he was the most fouled player in Major League Soccer, just drawing all that attention, getting in the hard parts. And hey, he'll take a knee too for you.
And then you have David Bricalo, exciting, one of the top center backs in Eliteserien in Norway. Viking didn't want to give him, they didn't want to, was playing hard to get a little bit with Orlando. He has a song, so I mean, he has his own song, so I mean, he was huge for Viking. So on paper, he's exciting, just like the same as when Antonio first came into the team. So definitely exciting. And then you have Luis Muriel, right? I think that Oscar has that touch of turning players that are kind of going down on the down and outs, like Alexander Pato extended his career tremendously, making one of the cornerstones of that US Open Cup championship for Orlando. And I think he can do maybe the same with Muriel, that comes to 32 years old, fit, not injured. I think he maybe be able to do that as well, maybe fit more into the system that he has on the attacking third. So it was a good pickup too, in my opinion, especially for the price and for the cost.
Makes the FIFA team more exciting too. I'll tell you what. I remember Ultimate Team always throwing Muriel on my Italian squad up top back when he was playing with Sampdoria, Fiorentina, Atalanta. Very, very good career. One of the most exciting signings for me personally. I know it may not be the biggest deal on paper, but it's the one I want to see work out the most. Absolutely.
I think David Bricalo looks like a really, really good center back. Like he could be up there with one of the better center backs at the end of the year. I think he's got a lot of strength for us. And our back line, like we talked about, had one of the best defensive records last year. So if we're going to add another key piece into that, it's going to make us even more difficult to score against.
Love it. If I turn on a game, let's talk about the X's and O's. Play style, coach, tactics. What am I going to see?
To me, 4-2-3-1. I don't think Oscar's going to change that. I think you're going to see Muriel. In the first game, you're probably going to see the double pivot. You're going to see Araujo and Cartagena. You're going to see Lodero as your 10. You're going to see Facundo as your right winger. You're going to see Angulo as your left winger. I think that's what you're going to see at first. Pretty much that. That's what I feel you're going to see. The cool thing about what we have now tactically is that these he could change this around into that the 3 players around in the mid before Muriel, they could switch positions in transition, and you don't know when they're going to hit you. That's the
Exactly.
unpredictability for Orlando City. Now, you could take Lodero. He's getting tired. You take maybe, you maybe just put Cartagena as a solid 6. You can put Felipe Martins, and then you could do the same thing. You can take Ojeda. You can take Facundo, put Ojeda in. So there's a lot of plug and play players now that will allow you to keep doing that consistently throughout 90 minutes. And, on paper looks, in my opinion, great. And the back line also. So now you have David Bracalo. You have a Scandinavian pretty much backline right there with Dagerdan from Iceland. You got Slovenia from David Bracalo, and Sweden from Robin Jensen. And then you have, Rafa Santos, and then you have also young kids like Holiday, like, we have Thomas Williams. So I just think depth-wise, Orlando's pretty stacked right now. And tactically, that's what I'm going to see. A lot of pressing in transition too from the players.
Love it. And one of the things I like here is that you guys got players like Ramiro Enrique, Martin Ojeda, we have not even mentioned and are not on the starting roster. So, like, if you have Nico Lodero is going to miss some time, he's got older legs, maybe you throw someone else in. Who would be the backup number 10 in that situation?
I think Ojeda is most likely to fill in there when Nico's like not ready or we want to play. But from what we've seen with Nico, I think he will play whenever he's fit. But when he's not, we can play Ojeda there. We can play Facu Torres there. Honestly, we have a lot of versatility in this team. Guys like Dagger Dan, who was turned into a right back, but actually could play anywhere in the midfield positions. Left back is really the only place that potentially I would like to maybe find us another left-footed defender. We have right back, so you can play there. But that's the only place for me. Everywhere else, we have a lot of interchangeable players in a lot of positions, especially in that forward line with Duncan coming back. So, we have Luis Muriel, but you've got Duncan McGuire as your backup
I don't know
option.
any other team in Major League Soccer that has a 10-goal scorer starting on the bench day one.
And Enrique, obviously, I see him more as a left winger, but he can play there. Jack Lynn got MVP of MLS Next Pro last year. Pro, he's 4 string right now for a striker wise. So that gives you an idea of our attacking firepower that we've got in this squad.
Another thing that we've seen is switching to a 4-3-3 with Cartagena as your 6, your only anchor right there in the mid.
Sure.
And you have Lodero on the left and Ojeda on the right. We've seen that too in preseason. I feel like that's going to be when we need to really we're playing against maybe DC United, that have a Tampa Bay Rowdy center back. Some of the teams that are kind of not as, it's not a Nashville, it's not a Red Bull, and we need to kill them the first 30 minutes. We're probably going to see just that one solid pivot right there in the mid with Cartagena, and maybe save Araujo for the second half to hold the game down. That could also now, that's the beauty, or Oscar has that now, that possibility to do that and the players to do so. So that's another thing that I wanted to add on there.
I'm interested in what the general consensus is around Felipe Martins. He was a guy who played with Red Bull, won a couple shields with us, and it seemed like later on, towards the end of his career, he was just kind of the hack guy. Like, hey, we need a yellow card. Go out there and kick someone's boots out from under him. How do you think about Felipe Martins? What's he doing nowadays?
Oh, we love him for that reason, though. Like he will go out there and he goes out and scraps. Like, did you watch the Leagues Cup game last year between us and Miami? Because he was getting in Messi's face, and we love that sort of heart that he brings and his passion. He's one that is, we know he's fairly limited in his age at 34 and what he can do from the D-mid, but he really amplifies the sort of drive and passion and almost like grittiness that we kind of have. Oscar is very much that kind of coach. He grew up playing, Colombian soccer in the 90s, where you have to have a little bit of grit and a little bit of determination, and he embodies that into the players. And I think Felipe is the prime example of that.
Now we've gotten this far, 19 minutes and 35 seconds before saying the M word. And that's the next place I really want to go, because I brought some storylines, some things I kind of want to keep track of throughout the season. And I want to talk about some of those now. And the first one is, can Orlando outperform their nosy neighbors? a lot of focus this offseason has been on Miami. On paper, this is a better team. And this team is built for a supporter shield, for a long playoff run, as to where Miami, they're going to sneak into every competition they get and then blow everyone out, down bracket. So these two teams are built, a lot differently. But I think you guys should be getting just as much attention. My money is going to be on Orlando. I'm going to do a prediction show, and I'm going to pick maybe 3 teams who are going to, be, 2 from the East, 2 from the West, who have a chance at winning the division, and then who. It's got to be Orlando. You guys got to be in every discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe that some of those players that they've signed don't know how hard the league is now, how physical the league is, how every team on the preseason, boost their roster, and also the different turfs they're gonna have to play. So now with this whole ordeal of them forgetting about what GAM is, and now being able to, hey, we have to give away 4 players. What's going on here? I thought we were Inter Miami. We're the face of the league. They don't know what to do. They have a short squad, in my opinion. Yes, on paper, fantastic. But will those players adapt right away?
Traveling from Orlando to LA back to, Minnesota midweek.
Right. The quality's there. I mean, Luis Suarez, injured in Brazil, scored like 13 goals. So, I mean, the quality's there. We just need to see, it's hard to say because their preseason has been horrible, and we have not seen, and not only their fan base, I feel like their fan base have not seen what they're literally paying for.
They were also set up for failure in that preseason squad. I could talk about that all. There's a reason why teams don't want their preseason video getting out. I wouldn't want it out either. So I think that was kind of approached in the wrong way. But yeah, you guys are very different in those 2 ways. Like Miami's now the money team, just like LA Galaxy. Mm-hmm. And, back when LA Galaxy were good, you had the Earthquakes, San Jose Earthquakes, which is like the scrappy town, the working class neighborhood. Kind of see how you're getting pushed into that, whether or not that identity was there. Apparently it was not to my knowledge, but you guys are certainly pushed far into that end now. Have you noticed a lot more soccer down in Florida? Because I see Messi kids everywhere here, but have you seen maybe like a new rejuvenated love of soccer for Orlando fans?
I think for us, it was a case of we had a big USL following, and that was an incredible time for us. And we joined the league, and like a lot of expansion teams struggled, right? But we had our neighbors that joined, like Atlanta came in and won, and New York came in and won, right? And so we kind of looked around like that. Yeah, right. We looked around and we were wondering, when is our time going to be? And I think the best part about this is this. As our neighbors to the south have come in and done, spent an incredible amount of money and brought in these amazing names, at this time, we've also upped our game. And so I think what you're going to find is that this year, some of the best rivalry, or the best rivalry could be, and some of the best games you're going to see are from Florida, right? The El Clasico del Sol could be the semifinal of several competitions. Like you said, we're going to go far in things like the Champions League, I believe. I think Miami also could go far in the Champions League, Leagues Cup, the MLS Cup final stages. I imagine at some point we're going to come up against them in a big, big game like that. And it's going to make for some really, really entertaining soccer, because our squad, I believe, like you said, is just as good as theirs. I do think ours is deeper, and I do think that we're more likely to win something like the Supporters Shield, and they're more likely to win something that's just a few, like the Champions League.
The Supporters Shield isn't on Miami's radar.
6 games. Yeah.
It's not on the radar.
Exactly.
They don't care.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel it's 2 different ways of seeing the MLS growth. They are more of like the LeBron James, Miami team, with D Wade and Chris Bosh. We are more of like the 2009.
I'll smile and nod. I've seen maybe 3 basketball games in my entire life. So
right.
Sure. Yeah, those guys.
So it's like, you're bringing in like massive amount of, it's a big marketed team because of the level of the names that you're bringing in. But what's behind that? There's really nothing behind it. We haven't heard of one youth player that's killing it. I mean, I don't see a lot of UN's youth or men's national team call-ups outside of Yedlin. And you know, on the other side here in Orlando, I mean, they've won youth championships, the academy for Orlando City. So when you go to Orlando, you go to a bar there's people that, you know, are repping the colors, are really focused on the community, really know about soccer. It's kind of building something similar maybe Seattle has with soccer in a way, you know, very, very, you know, since USL days, just like John said, you know, it's more like that in Orlando. And I think Orlando's focused on building a squad in the collective sense of the way, in the attacking third and defensively, getting a really good age of play, right? So 24, 25, maybe up to 32-year-old signings, not getting all those over the hill, you know, big names, but that are really going to be there only for 1-2 seasons. If that.
I think the goal is to have some of those players, right? Like you do have Muriel, you do have Ladero. They're going to help your squad. They're going to improve your squad, but that can't be the base of your squad. That can't be your plan A every time.
Exactly.
And I think you guys did a really great job of squad building here. It's hard for me to find, you know, any place here that you're going to improve the roster. Is anything coming over the summer? Have you heard any other rumors, or are we just shutting it down for now?
I just quickly say we did all that last year without those key star signings, and we came second.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think this year we're going to really go up a level. The summer, I think the big question is just Duncan McGuire. Like, honestly, it's not so much who's coming in, it's what's happening with Duncan. You know, he's got to get his head down and get back to playing soccer for 6 months and forget about all this transfer nonsense. Apparently, you know, teams are still interested in him, but we would like to, you know, keep him, obviously, if he wants to stay here. But if he wants to go, we want to sell him for money. So I'd rather he, you know, upped his price again and is able to go in the summer. If that's going to happen, then that's a whole lot of money that we're going to be bringing into the club. Then maybe we go ahead and fix an issue. But like you said, I don't really see an issue, maybe left back depth in this squad right now.
Yeah, and I almost forgot all about that whole Duncan McGuire saga.
Yeah.
He was supposed to, rumors were he was getting signed by, what club was it? Was it Nottingham?
Blackburn.
No, Blackburn.
He got on a plane, finds out on the plane that the deal's off.
Then, they announced him. They had it out with the jersey, everything. And then they failed the registration.
And then, this is like a double drama. Like, he went there, the deal fell through, but then they fixed it. And then he lands on the plane, takes this picture, does it with the jersey. They apparently someone didn't click submit.
Correct.
Someone's mouse must have died.
Click save, not submit on the form, and they missed the deadline.
Wow.
Awful. Wow.
And now Duncan's back here, and hey, you know, we got another great striker in the
Hopefully
squad.
He does something to improve
it
his
worked
value.
out. Yeah.
Hopefully he does something to improve his value with his playtime. The worst case scenario is he doesn't put a season together and lost the opportunity. Okay, we have Luis and John from Loud and Proud Orlando, the Orlando City Podcast. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out here tonight to talk with us.
No, thank you.
All right, so guys, make sure you check out i80sports.com, youtube.com/i80sports, or find the Designated Pundits anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're previewing each and every one of the 29 Major League Soccer teams. So thank you so much for being here with us. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a good one.